What happens when engineers look at the laws of physics and say, nah, we'll make our own rules? You get cars so brilliantly insane that they didn't just dominate racing, they broke it. These aren't just fast cars, these are automotive war crimes disguised as race machines. Today, we're diving into 3 of the most illegal monsters that changed racing forever. Cars so good they had to be banned from existence. But first, smash that like button if you've ever wondered what happens when brilliant engineers have unlimited budgets and questionable judgment. The vacuum cleaner from hell, Chaparral 2J. Let's start with the car that literally sucked its way to victory, the 1970 Chaparral 2J. And no, that's not a euphemism. This thing actually had a vacuum cleaner attached to it. Picture this. It's 1970, and while everyone else is arguing about aerodynamics and downforce, American engineer Jim Hall shows up with what looks like a regular race car, except it has 2 massive fans on the back, powered by a separate snowmobile engine. I'm not making this up. The concept was beautifully simple and absolutely bonkers. Instead of waiting for air to naturally create downforce at high speeds, why not just suck the car to the track? The fans created a low-pressure area underneath the car, generating consistent downforce regardless of speed. It was like having cheat codes in real life. And did it work? Oh boy, did it work. The 2J could take corners at speeds that made other drivers question their career choices. While everyone else was sliding around corners like drunk penguins, the 2J was glued to the track like it was running on rails. But here's where it gets spicy. The other teams took one look at this vacuum-powered nightmare and basically said, this feels like cheating with extra steps. The complaints were immediate and loud. It's not fair. It's too advanced. It's using technology. Speaking of using technology to embarrass the competition, let me tell you about a car that showed up to Le Mans looking like it came from the future. The front-wheel drive Frankenstein, Nissan GT-R LM NISMO. Fast forward to 2015 and Nissan decides to crash the Le Mans party with the automotive equivalent of showing up to a black tie event in a tuxedo t-shirt, technically following the rules while completely missing the point. The GT-R LM NISMO was Nissan's middle finger to conventional racing wisdom. While everyone else was building traditional rear-wheel drive prototypes, Nissan said, what if we made a front-wheel drive Le Mans car? It was like suggesting you could win a marathon by walking backwards. Theoretically possible, hilariously unconventional. This thing was weird, like designed by aliens who only learned about cars from Wikipedia weird. It was shorter than its competitors, wider than a small aircraft carrier, and had more hybrid technology than a Toyota dealership. The front wheels did all the work while the rear wheels were basically along for the moral support. But here's the kicker, it was supposed to be fast. Not just competitive fast, but rewrite the physics textbook fast. The concept was brilliant. Lower drag, better efficiency, and a hybrid system that could deploy power like a caffeinated cheetah. Unfortunately, reality had other plans. The car showed up to Le Mans and immediately proved that sometimes innovation and actually working are 2 completely different things. It was slower than a Sunday drive and about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. But here's why it's still legendary. Nissan had the absolute audacity to try something so radically different that it made everyone else look boring. It didn't work, but it was the kind of spectacular failure that pushes the entire sport forward. Sometimes you have to crash and burn spectacularly to light the way for future innovation. Now, if the GT-R LM was a beautiful failure, our next car was an ugly success that dominated so hard they had to change the rules. The Porsche that broke racing, 917. Enter the Porsche 917, a car that looked like it was designed by someone who thought subtle was a foreign word they didn't need to learn. This wasn't just a race car, this was automotive terrorism with a Porsche badge. Built in 1969, the 917 was Porsche's response to the question, what if we made something absolutely unhinged? It started with a 4.5-liter flat 12 engine that sounded like the apocalypse having a good day. Then they kept adding power until it reached levels that would make modern hypercars nervous. We're talking about 600 plus horsepower in an era when most road cars were happy to make 100. The 917 wasn't just powerful, it was dangerously, hilariously, magnificently overpowered. Drivers described it as trying to tame a hurricane while riding a lightning bolt. But raw power was just the appetizer. The real main course was the aerodynamics, or rather the complete lack thereof in the early versions. The original 917 was about as aerodynamically stable as a brick thrown by an angry gorilla. It would hit 200 plus miles per hour on the straights, then try to become a low-flying aircraft when you least expected it. The Le Mans footage from 1970 is absolutely terrifying to watch. These cars were missiles with minimal safety equipment, hitting speeds that would make modern Formula 1 cars respectfully nod in acknowledgement. When one crashed, it didn't just crash, it exploded into a million pieces like a very expensive firework display. And dominate, oh, it dominated. Porsche won Le Mans in 1970 and 1971 with the 917, setting records that stood for decades. But it wasn't just winning, it was winning so convincingly that other manufacturers started questioning whether they should just pack up and go home. The 917 evolved throughout its career, spawning variants that pushed the boundaries of sanity even further. The 917/30 Can-Am version pumped out over 1,000 horsepower in qualifying trim. 1,000 horsepower in 1973. That's more power than most modern supercars, achieved with 1970s technology and what can only be described as creative interpretation of safety regulations. But like all legendary monsters, the 917's reign of terror couldn't last forever. The aftermath. When legends become too legendary. Here's the thing about building cars that are too good. Eventually, someone notices and ruins all the fun. Each of these monsters met their end not because they weren't fast enough, but because they were too fast. The Chaparral 2J, banned after just one season because the fans were deemed movable aerodynamic devices. Apparently actively sucking yourself to the track was considered unsporting. Who knew? The Nissan GT-R LM? Well, that one banned itself by being spectacularly uncompetitive. Sometimes the racing gods have a sense of humor. And the Porsche 917? It didn't get banned, it got regulated out of existence. New engine displacement limits, safety requirements, and fuel restrictions basically made it impossible to build anything that gloriously unhinged ever again. But here's the beautiful irony. By being too successful, these cars forced the entire sport to evolve. Safety improved, technology advanced, and new innovations emerged from the ashes of their banned predecessors. The 2J's ground effect concept lives on in modern Formula 1. The GT-R LM's hybrid technology is now standard in endurance racing, and the 917's aerodynamic lessons learned, often the hard way, shaped every race car that followed. The legacy of beautiful madness. These weren't just race cars, they were statements. Statements that said we refuse to accept that this is as fast as cars can go. They were built by people who looked at the rulebook, found the loopholes, and drove trucks through them at 200 miles per hour. Sure, they got banned, regulated, or proved to be spectacularly unworkable, but they pushed the boundaries of what was possible, and in doing so, they changed racing forever. Every modern race car carries DNA from these banned monsters, whether it's ground effects, hybrid systems, or just the pure audacity to try something completely insane. The Chaparral 2J proved that sometimes the best way to go fast is to cheat physics. The Nissan GT-R LM showed that innovation requires the courage to fail spectacularly, and the Porsche 917 demonstrated that sometimes too much is exactly enough. These cars didn't just break records, they broke the sport itself, forcing it to rebuild into something better, safer, and ironically, even faster. So there you have it, 3 cars that were so good at being bad that they changed the game forever. They proved that sometimes the most important victories happen off the track, in the engineering offices where madmen with calculators dare to ask, what if we tried something completely insane? If you love this deep dive into automotive rebellion, absolutely demolish that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we've got more stories of cars that dared to break the rules and broke the sport instead. Drop a comment below, which of these banned monsters would you want to drive? The vacuum-powered Chaparral, the front-wheel drive Nissan, or the apocalyptic Porsche? I read every comment, and honestly, your choice says a lot about your relationship with both speed and common sense. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best way to change the world is to build something so outrageous they have to make it illegal. Keep pushing boundaries and keep the rubber side down.